Now, it's the first day of testing for the new Formula One season. The teams have 3 4-day sessions between now and the first race to check out their new cars. Well, the first session takes place in Jerez in Spain, and our Formula One reporter Rachel Brooks is there for us. Rachel, good morning.
Good morning, Mike, and a glorious morning here in Jerez. The sun is up now, and as you'll be able to hear in just a moment or two, the cars are out on track. We've had about 20 minutes or so of them running so far this morning. As Nico Rosberg goes past in the new Mercedes, and Ted Kravitz joins me now. Ted, what are the teams trying to do today?
Today's all going to be about basic systems checks and reliability. It sounds easy to say it and silly to say it, but these are brand new cars. So they've only been pieced together in the factory. They've never run on track up until now properly. So really they need to understand whether everything works, whether all the electronics work. Very complicated cars. These absolutely cutting edge technology, of course, whether the hydraulics all pump together, whether the brakes work, and then they can start on aerodynamic data gathering. So they can start measuring everything, all the loads on the car, and just checking that the numbers that they're seeing physically on track match the numbers in their computer simulations and design.
As you speak, the Williams has just gone past. Now, Williams are running their 2012 car. They haven't launched the 2013 car yet. What does that mean to a team? Is that a big setback? Will there be elements of the 2013 car on that one that's going around?
The first thing to say about Williams is that it's slightly disappointing that they haven't brought their brand new car here, but they have got the new nose cone with the new nose, the new front wing and the new rear wing. So the only thing that isn't new is the bit in the middle. So it's not the end of the world really for Williams. It just means that they won't be able to try all those systems checks that we just spoke about on their main car until the second test in Barcelona, but not a big thing for Williams really. They'll still get some decent running because they need to understand the tyres as well. And also as the Mercedes goes round, that's starting to get some information on the tyres because we have new tyres this year as well. But Nico Rosberg, I thought, interesting, out of the 2 Mercedes drivers, he's first in the car, not Lewis Hamilton.
Yes, I mean, we talk about this because each team brings 1 car to testing, so it's a driver per day as such. And we're not going to see Alonso at this first test in Jerez. Now, last year he did say how disappointed he was with the Ferrari when he got out in it at testing. Him not being here, what does that mean? What message does that send? And why would he not come?
Well, he wouldn't come because this circuit, Jerez, isn't really representative of many of the circuits that we race on throughout the year. So this is quite a clever tactic, I think, from Fernando Alonso. He said to the Ferrari team, I would like more days in Barcelona on the circuit that holds the Spanish Grand Prix because that's much more like the circuits that we race on throughout the year. And Ferrari have said to him, well, OK, but we need to be equal with the days we give you and your teammate Felipe Massa. And so Alonso presumably has said to them, OK, well, I won't do the first test at all. Put Pedro de la Rosa, their test driver, in the Ferrari for the first day. Then Felipe Massa will do the whole rest of the remaining of the Jerez test. And then I'll get my 3 days back in Barcelona. So I'm pretty sure that's what's happened. That's certainly what I've read into it and what a lot of my colleagues in the media centre have read into Alonso not doing here. It's a clever game by him. Makes sure he gets more good time testing at a proper circuit like Barcelona and not something that isn't really representative of the Grand Prix tracks we're going to go to here at Jerez.
And it was something you mentioned to me earlier. If our camera just pans around, you'll see there are stands here because this is a circuit that's been used, of course, in the past for races. And these stands are empty. And usually here, I remember last year being here and seeing the fans pouring in to come and see Alonso. He's their home favourite and he's not here. Indeed,
yes. It was easy for us to get in this morning because it's only us press here and the teams and there's nobody here. So, of course, the F1 fans of southern Spain will be very disappointed that they couldn't come along, pay their €5 or €10 and see Fernando Alonso in action. But, well, it's Fernando's choice and he'll be in Barcelona.
And just finally, Ted, body language is a very good way of us working out how these cars are doing because we can see it in the drivers' faces, much as they might say, oh no, it's a great car and we're really happy. How long will it take them to work out, just give them a rough idea of where they might be this season? Some people say 5 laps in, they'll know roughly what they'll be fighting for this season. Is that fair?
I think it'll take a few more than 5 laps. I mean, you saw Pastor Maldonado pretty much on the edge as he came through turn 1 there, but that's a known platform. Maldonado will know what he's got underneath him because it's essentially last year's car, but it's the new tyres. And I think that's what we'll be hearing from at the end of the day. People will be saying, oh, these new tyres are a bit of a surprise, but no, we'll see. I think it's a bit too early to be reading body language into it. What I was interested in was Lewis Hamilton, even before 9 a.m. when we started this morning, was down at the front of the pit lane, eager to see the new cars come out, and I had a quick word with him and he said he just wanted to see what everybody else has got. He knows what he's got in the Mercedes. He wants to see what the new Red Bull look like, what the Ferrari looks like, what the McLaren looks like, and his old teammate Jenson Button. So yeah, we'll know from the body language a little later on, and as the test finishes in about 3 days' time, where people stand.
So thanks very much. That was Jenson just going past then, and we will be speaking to him later on as well. We'll find out just what the drivers are making of these 2013 cars and the new tyres that Pirelli have brought as well.
For the new Formula One season, the teams have 3 4-day sessions between now and the first race of the campaign to check out their new cars. Well, Sauber were one of the first teams to head out onto the track with Nico Hülkenberg behind the wheel, while Mark Webber was testing the Red Bull for the new season. Now, there's a red flag shortly afterwards as Jenson Button's McLaren stopped on the track following what looked like a mechanical fault. He had to be towed back to the pit lane. 2009 world champion got a ride back to the pits to discuss the fault with the mechanics. Plenty of time, that's what you test for. Lewis Hamilton was also there as he prepares for his first season away from McLaren at Mercedes. Well, Max Chilton will make his Formula One debut this year after securing the second race seat at Marussia. Chilton has been testing out the new car and says he can't wait to get started.
It's a big day, you know, the press, there's a lot more of it. There's a lot for a test. This is just, for me, crazy. There's so many people here, but you know, to get one car on the grid is a lot of people's work, so that's why it's so important that today goes well and we get some really good sessions in throughout the 4 days testing, and I can't wait. I've done a good few sessions in the simulator, but it's not like the real thing until you're on track, so everyone behind the scenes are raring to go and very excited to see how it performs, but you've got a lot of kind of practice work before you get up to full speed, but I'm sure it'll be fine.
Now, this Thursday marks 1 year until the opening.
It's the first day of testing ahead of the new Formula One season. Teams have gathered in Jerez to check out their new cars. They have just 12 days of running before the first race in Australia. Jenson Button was first through the gates. In fact, it was still dark when he turned up. He's pretty much the first off the track too. His McLaren stopped on the track because of a fuel pump issue, similar to what ended his race in Monza last year. 2009 champion had to hitch a ride back to the pit lane in a safety car. Well, Lewis Hamilton was trackside, no doubt keen to get as much information about his new car as possible. He'll be testing tomorrow. So it's Nico Rosberg at the wheel of the new Mercedes. The red flag came out when his team suffered a slight electrical fault, but it sounded good. Felipe Massa turned up for Ferrari. It's one car per testing. Fernando Alonso gave today's testing a miss.
This circuit, Jerez, isn't really representative of many of the circuits that we race on throughout the year. So this is quite a clever tactic, I think, from Fernando Alonso. He said to the Ferrari team, I would like more days in Barcelona on the circuit that holds the Spanish Grand Prix, because that's much more like the circuits that we race on throughout the year. And Ferrari have said to him, well, OK, but we need to be equal with the days we give you and your teammate Felipe Massa. So Alonso presumably has said to them, OK, well, I won't do the first test at all. Put Pedro de la Rosa, their test driver, in the Ferrari for the first day. Then Felipe Massa will do the whole rest of the remainder of the Jerez test. And then I'll get my 3 days back in Barcelona.
Well, Max Chilton will make his Formula One debut this year after securing the second race seat at Marussia. But no news on a new teammate.
Well, hopefully soon. You know, there's no announcement yet, but you know, we'll keep Max busy in the meantime and see how the car goes. Max,
you're probably the most eager of everybody here. What does it feel like today? Obviously, coming up from GP2, this is your first season in Formula One racing.
Yeah, it's a big day. You know, the press, there's a lot more of it. There's a lot for a test. This is just, for for me, crazy. There's so many people here, but you know, to get one car on the grid is a lot of people's work, so that's why it's so important that today goes well and we get some really good sessions in throughout the 4 days testing, and I can't wait.
Oh, Rachel Brooks posing the questions there, and there she is in the Jerez sunshine. Let's go live back to her now, Rachel.
Thank you, Rob. Yes, and it's warmed up considerably here. It tends to do that in the middle of the day. Very cold in the morning, very cold in the afternoon and evening, but in the middle of the day we get some glorious sunshine. I'm joined now by the McLaren team principal, Martin Whitmarsh. And Martin, unfortunately, I have to start by asking you about Jensen's stop on track this morning, problem with the fuel pump.
Just that, yeah, no, a fuel pump failure, which isn't great because it's really quite a big scene to get it changed, although, as we can hear behind us on cue, clearly the engine's running again now, but no, I guess that's what testing's about. You'd rather not have it, but on the other hand, you'd rather have the problems here than obviously later in testing or at a race weekend. So, no, a fuel pump failure and a reasonable scene for the guys to sort it.
And what are you hoping to achieve from this testing, this first week of testing here?
Well, like everyone, you know, the car that we're testing here isn't actually the car we're going to race. You're going to test mechanical systems like fuel systems. You're going to start to get a feel, to get the team working on, really working with this car. So the car's going to evolve. We're going to be living with it now until December. So it's an exciting time when you start to learn its potential, how to work with it, how to exploit it. Inevitably, things will get a bit hotter as we move to Barcelona in week 9. An important test, and one where all of the teams will bring some of their final upgrades before Australia. But there'll be lots of guessing, lots of speculation about pace. With the DRS zones that people can exploit or not exploit with different fuel loads, anyone can set virtually any lap time they want here. So I think the trick is to make sure you remain disciplined, you run your engineering programs, you learn about the car. It starts to count really in Q1 of in the qualifying session of Australia. That's when we've really got to be best prepared, and we've only got 3 tests, so really precious time, which we'd rather not be sat in the garage changing fuel pumps. But as I say, I think we'll be in good shape by the time we get to Australia.
It was widely thought you had the fastest car last year, but reliability issues caused you a loss of points and maybe even a loss of place in the constructors, but maybe even title for one of your drivers. Has that been something you've really had to work on over the winter?
Well, inevitably you do, because as you say, we started with the quickest car, we ended it, we had it quickest at various moments. So, won 7 races. If you come out of a year like that and you haven't won a championship, you've got to be disappointed with yourself. So, looking at operational processes, engineering process, making sure we as a team can get the best out of the car, not just in pace, but also in consistent performance, consistent point scoring. So that means, for drivers, for the team, not to make mistakes. It means we've got to be absolutely clear that we're best prepared. And I think it makes us very motivated to make sure that we're hoping we've got a quick car again this year, and we can really go for a championship this year.
Sergio Perez gets in the car for you tomorrow for a run around on the track. One of the things we know we're going to talk to him about over the winter, preparing for this season, is just take it easy, feet on the ground. A couple of mistakes last season from him being maybe a little bit overexcited on track and just getting used to things and getting a bit more used to Formula One. What have you been doing with him over the winter?
No, he's been working very hard. He's been training. He's been working with the engineering team, working in the simulator. So I think he's been surprised by the intensity of that program. So I think he's enjoyed it. Obviously, it's been great so far. We've enjoyed working together. We're in the honeymoon period at the moment. I think the relationship between he and Jensen, I think, is great at the moment. They haven't raced each other in the same team yet, but they're really working hard together. Jensen's obviously got all that confidence, all that experience, and clearly Checo's got a lot of hunger. They're working absolutely great, but inevitably when we get to Australia, when they pull out the garage, they'll want to beat each other, and that's how we like to run our team. I think we can keep a healthy dynamic and a healthy competition. These things don't always go to plan. They can boil over, as you know, but I think we've got 2 really nice guys, balanced guys, competitive, honest and open, so I think it's going to work well, but we'll see.
Martin, thank you very much for joining us. Talk to us this afternoon. I know you don't often make it to testing, but good to see you here in Spain. And as you can hear, cars back out on track, and Jensen should be out very shortly as well. Back on the track, only managed 3 laps this morning before the car stopped, but hoping to get out this afternoon and just see what this year's McLaren has underneath that skin. Back to you guys.
Luck with a lambing, I like that. The first day of testing For the new Formula One season is taking place in Jerez in Spain today. And my colleague Rachel Brooks is out there for us now. Rachel, good afternoon. What is the latest you can tell us, Rachel, on Jenson Button and these apparent problems he's had today?
Well, Jim, I can tell you that Jenson is back out on track now, but earlier on today, this morning, we saw Jenson pull over at the side of the track. It was after just 3 laps. He'd been going around this morning and he had to stop, and it was a fuel pump issue. Now, they took the car back to the pits and they worked on it for quite a while, and he had to sit out of about 3 hours worth of testing earlier on today. But he did get back out again. He is going at the moment, and he's managed to put a fair few laps on the board, and that's what McLaren will be looking for now. They're looking for some reliability in that McLaren, because of course they had reliability issues last year. We spoke to Martin Whitmarsh, and those reliability issues really blighted their season, cost them a place in the Constructors and possibly cost them the Drivers' Championship for one of their drivers, for Lewis Hamilton, of course. So they're looking at that, and that's something they're really keen to get rid of this season, those reliability problems they had. And it's not the best start they could have had for testing, but the good news is the car is back out now, and we understand the fuel pump design that they were using today was a new one. So they'll be looking into that and seeing if that gives them any more problems over the next few days. This is just one of 12 days running they have before the first race. That's all they get. 12 days running of these cars on track before they have to be ready for that first race in Melbourne. Elsewhere, problems for Lewis Hamilton's new team, Mercedes, because Nico Rosberg went out in the Mercedes earlier today and he only got 14 laps under his belt before he had to stop. Now, that was a problem. We saw some flames coming out around the exhaust area, and we understand it was an electrical problem to start with, but they then traced that back when they took the car apart. They've had to remove the engine, they've had to take the gearbox out and do some further investigations, and it's all to do with the wiring. They've had to replace some parts, but they tell me that they're working on that now. Although Nico won't be able to run again today, Lewis Hamilton will be in the car tomorrow for Mercedes. Nico Rosberg himself seems in fairly good spirits. He's gone out for a bike ride now around Jerez, and he seems fairly upbeat. It's not too serious a problem, it just takes a long time to fix. But we do expect to see that car back on the track tomorrow with Lewis Hamilton behind the wheel.
Rachel.
It's the first day of testing ahead of the new Formula One season. There was some good news for Lewis Hamilton, even though he starts testing tomorrow. But it's McLaren's Jenson Button who was quickest in Jerez today. Button was first through the gates. In fact, it was still dark when he turned up. And he was pretty much first off the track as well, just the 3 laps before he had a fuel pump issue, similar to what ended his race in Monza last year. Well, McLaren then fixed the problem, and the 2009 champion was nearly a second faster than his rivals.
No, I guess that's what testing's about. You'd rather not have it, but on the other hand, you'd rather have the problems here than obviously later in testing or at a race weekend. So, no, a fuel pump failure and a reasonable scene for the guys to sort it.
Well, Lewis Hamilton was trackside, no doubt keen to get as much information about his new car as possible. He'll be testing tomorrow, as I said. So Nico Rosberg had a go today. Just 14 laps before an electrical fault ended his day's work, but he's happy with the car.
And for sure we have a lot more downforce and better grip than last year, definitely, as the car is a big step forward.
That's excellent news, and good that you can tell so quickly. Normally it takes a while we get to Barcelona before you find this kind of thing out.
Nope, I know that already now. The thing I don't know is how much the other teams have moved forward.
Good point. Okay.
There's the catch.
Felipe Massa turned up for Ferrari. It's 1 car per day, but Fernando Alonso won't be at Jerez this week.
This circuit, Jerez, isn't really representative of many of the circuits that we race on throughout the year. So this is quite a clever tactic, I think, from Fernando Alonso. He said to the Ferrari team, I would like more days in Barcelona on the circuit that holds the Spanish Grand Prix, because that's much more like the circuits that we race on throughout the year. And Ferrari have said to him, well, OK, but we need to be equal with the days we give you and your teammate Felipe Massa. So Alonso presumably has said to them, OK, well, I won't do the first test at all. Put Pedro de la Rosa, their test driver, in the Ferrari for the first day. Then Felipe Massa will do the whole rest of the remaining of the Jerez test. And then I'll get my 3 days back in Barcelona.
Max Chilton was back in the garage after his Marussia car took a hit to the right rear. And no news as yet on a new teammate.
Hopefully soon, there's no announcement yet, but you know, we'll keep Max busy in the meantime and see how the car goes.
Max, you're probably the most eager of everybody here. What does it feel like today? Obviously, coming up from GP2, this is your first season in Formula One racing.
Yeah, it's a big day. You know, the press, there's a lot more of it. There's a lot for a test. This is just, for me, crazy. There's so many people here, but you know, to get one car on the grid is a lot of people's work. So that's why it's so important that today goes well and we get some really good sessions in throughout the 4 days testing.
And Mark Webber was there for Red Bull, and the Australian enjoyed a trouble-free 53 laps in the new RB9. He was second fastest.
Now back here. Well, McLaren's Jenson Button set the fastest time on the first day of testing ahead of the new Formula One season. Mark Webber was second quickest for Red Bull, while Lotus' Romain Grosjean was third. Button only managed 3 laps this morning before a problem with his McLaren's fuel pump caused him to stop out on track, and his car had to be brought back to the pits on the back of a truck. How embarrassing. Ah, well, the 2009 champion had to hitch a ride back to the pit lane.
No, I guess that's what testing's about. You'd rather not have it, but on the other hand, you'd rather have the problems here than obviously later in testing or at a race weekend. So, no, a fuel pump failure and a reasonable scene for the guys to sort it.
And sort it they did, and Button was back on track and set the fastest time of the day in the afternoon.
There's a nice feeling with the car, and it feels very similar to what I have in the simulator, which is great. Because it means when we develop the car, we can develop it not just on the circuit, we can develop it in the simulator.
When you last season, reliability issues caused problems for the McLaren team, lost a lot of points on it. Any concerns this going into this season? Is it something that's really been worked on?
Percentage-wise today, no, it hasn't been good. But you know, it's better to get out of the way now. This is something that we can solve, and it's better to have it now when you don't have the improvements to the car and, you know, bolting on the new setup, and you know, when you've got all the parts to do proper setup work, you want the car to be running smoothly and running reliably. So hopefully we won't have this issue again, and we can concentrate on just developing the car now.
Mark Webber was second quickest, but almost 1 second slower than Button after 73 laps in the new Red Bull. And what about Hamilton? Well, Lewis Hamilton trackside, no doubt, keen to get as much info about his new car as possible. He'll be testing the new Mercedes tomorrow. Today he was on foot. And so it was left to Nico Rosberg to begin testing, but his day was cut short by an electrical fault.
It's not ideal to lose so much time in the first day, but I also had a lot of positives today because it was really enjoyable to drive in the morning. The car felt very well balanced, and I felt very much at home, you know, and that's a nice feeling.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. When you were running, the times looked pretty good, although we shouldn't read anything into times. Did the car give you a feeling that it was more downforce, better grip than last year's car?
For sure, yes, it did, and for sure we have a lot more downforce and better grip than last year, definitely. The car is a big step forward.
As Felipe Massa, he was on duty for Ferrari while his teammate Fernando Alonso has decided to miss all 4 days in Jerez. Max Chilton will make his Formula One debut this year after securing the second race seat at Marussia. But no news on a new teammate.
Well, hopefully soon, you know, there's no announcement yet, but you know, we'll keep Max busy in the meantime and see how the car goes.
Max, you're probably the most eager of everybody here. What does it feel like today? Obviously, coming up from GP2, this is your first season in Formula One racing.
Yeah, it's a big day. You know, the press, there's a lot more of it. There's a lot for a test. This is just, for me, crazy. There's so many people here, but you know, to get one car on the grid is a lot of people's work. So that's why it's so important that today goes well and we get some really good sessions in throughout the 4 days testing.
Wow, he's in some
McLaren's Jenson Button was fastest on day 1 of Formula One pre-season testing in Jerez. Button had a fuel pump problem early on, but he came back to top the timesheets. Lewis Hamilton didn't drive, but saw his Mercedes teammate Nico Rosberg's session end early due to mechanical problems.
Jenson Button was in early for the first day of testing. Unfortunately, he was out early too. His fuel pump failed after just 3 laps. Given McLaren's reliability issues in 2012, was it an ominous sign?
It's better to get out of the way now. You know, I'd rather have it on the first day than towards the end of the test. or in the season. You know, this is something that we can solve, and it's better to have it now when you don't have the improvements to the car and, you know, bolting on the new setup, and, you know, when you've got all the parts to do proper setup work, you want the car to be running smoothly.
It was a first day back at a circuit for many of F1's famous faces, although Ferrari have given Fernando Alonso a week off. Romain Grosjean impressed initially in the Lotus, ditto Paul di Resta in the Force India. It took Button till mid-afternoon to set a time lap, but he'd finished the day fastest.
This afternoon was good. You know, I had a good feeling with the car and felt very at home immediately. I've got the same seat, which makes a big difference. You're not playing around with trying to get comfortable in there, so we could immediately get down to work.
Teams were running different fuel loads, making lap times hard to interpret. But Mark Webber and Felipe Massa were quick enough to suggest Red Bull and Ferrari have hit the ground running.
I think Adrian Newey said it's a development race throughout the year. It's not just what you come out with at the first race. And he's obviously correct. He is a lot of the time. You know, I feel exactly the same. You know, what car we have here is not what we'll have at the first race, and it might not even be the car that wins the World Championship, the one that's strongest in Melbourne.
Without track time scheduled, Button's ex-teammate perused the pit lane. Lewis Hamilton's new partner was also lightly employed. Electrical issues for Nico Rosberg required modified parts and ended his day. So just 14 laps for Rosberg in the Mercedes, and they're hoping they can fix the problem so that Lewis Hamilton can get a run out in the car on Wednesday. Meanwhile, his replacement at McLaren, Sergio Perez, will get his first taste of his new Formula One car. Rachel Brooks, Sky Sports, Jerez.